Hey folks, I've been trying for a long time to get around to building some terrain for my snow battle mat for a snow field that I made. So what I did is I've decided to make some of the snowy trees. I found at a hobby store for 70% off these, they're actually for dollhouses trees. They've got that bottom, so like that. And then I picked these up off of, I don't know, Amazon.com or something for on sale at some point. So what I decided to do is I have a whole bunch of scrap. Let me walk right here. These are all leftover scrap hardboard pieces from a couple other projects. So the first step was to cut out some bases for them. And what I'm going to do is, or at least the thought is, that I'll put these, oh, and by the way, these bottoms are the same size, which are fairly close, works out pretty nicely. So my plan here is to create something that will be modular, or not modular, but I'm going to magnetize it, and that way I can pull these off when you want models to go through, have a little thicker, and use these different trees, and that way I can pull the trees off and throw them in a bin, put these down flat somewhere. So I took so far 3 or 4, I'll probably do a few more, but I just took some of those scraps, cut out some what I'm going to have as bases, and the plan is to partially drill a hole here so that I can lay a magnet in it. I'll sand off the sides, flock the bases of these, drill into the bottom of these to put a matching magnet. These will be a little easier, and then I might carve these off, or I'm going to do something to at least hide that a little bit, maybe put a lot of flock on it, and then hopefully I'll have some magnetizable trees for fairly inexpensive. So scrap, I think this ended up being like $1.20 or maybe even a little less than $1 for the packs of 3, and I've had these so long I have no memory of how much these Bachman trees cost me, but I picked them up on Amazon for some very small price. Next step is I'm going to do some experimenting and drill in some holes to put some magnets in. Okay, I decided to try 2 different routes on this. First was my original plan. I drilled out a hole to fit the bases of the trees, and then drilled holes to put the magnets in. So you can see there's the little holes here. This was a test one with a 1/4-inch magnet. But what I realized was that I could only use the same size or the same tree every time, so whatever the base was, because different height trees have different bases. So if I was going to use a small tree, it always had to be a small tree, or a medium tree, or a big tree, so you could never have any variability. So what I then decided to do was to do one where I just put the magnets straight on the ground, and we'll see how that goes. The next thing I did after I drilled the holes to fit the magnets was I just sanded the sides just to give it a little walk so it's not such an abrupt change from the board. My next step is to put the magnets in, and the reason I originally thought of this was because it'd make it much easier if I decided to flock it. So what I'm thinking about doing with these is I'm going to paint it. I'll put some flock in between, but not where the circle of the base of trees would be. And I think that'll work out just as well, or maybe even just paint it and don't do any flock at all, because it'll make it easier for the models to go across. But anyway, next step is to glue in the magnets before I prime them, and I'll start gluing in the magnets in the base of the trees. Okay, so I have put the magnets in, and then I in the 2 different things, and then what I did is I drilled and put magnets into the bottom of these. So on these they can just go there, or like that. Now I was dutifully drilling, putting in these magnets so they could stick on there, and then it dawned on me that this piece here is actually a metal wire, and there's actually a big metal piece on the bottom of every one of them that comes through the base. So after about 4 or 5 magnets, make sure that's one, I realized that these will just stick on their own without having to put magnets in. So the ones with the big thick bases, I did have to put magnets in. 4 or 5 of these got magnets, but then I realized that the other 15 or so just stick on their own without having to do the magnet. So that saved me some magnets and some time. So if you're doing these Bachmann, the train trees, just realize there's a wire underneath, or if you're doing any others, any kind of trees, check and make sure there's a wire there and not before you start wasting time and magnets. Alright, next step is going to be to prime these. Okay, I probably didn't need to prime them before I did this. I was just going to paint it flat, but decided I did want a little bit of texture because mats and boards pretty much all have some texture. These are easy to do the sand. All you do is you've got the holes cut, just don't put the sand in the hole. And here they are I'm using playground sand, really fine sand instead of the more coarse sand. And then for this, because these are flat, I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay, these are the bigger trees, they have the biggest of the bases. I'm just going to put the glue down and do it around them, and that way they shouldn't have a lot of sand right there where the magnets are. Okay, so here they are. Now it's kind of a pain to do this with all these trees on, so what I've been doing is I just take a couple off, then I'll lay down the glue, and you know, if a little bit of glue gets on a couple of the trees, well, I mean on the base of the trees, doesn't matter because it's not like it's going to stick to it. Use the same sort of philosophy as with doing boards. Just don't put the sand down and then try and do the next round of glue. Always make sure there's some glue laying there, otherwise you get seams. In this case it's so small that I'm just gonna do the whole thing, and then I'll put the sand on it. Alright, so, and it bleeds over a little bit because of the water, but not a ton. And I tried it on one already, so this actually works pretty well. Well enough anyway. They still stick to it, and there's not a huge gap. And again, this is just a little piece of terrain for on my snowboard. My snow mat had some ripples and stuff in it, so I didn't want to have this completely flat. And then the next step is just, if I can spin this around, pretty simple step here. I just do it over here just to recapture the sand. And there we go. Just going to leave it right there for now. And then I'll move on to the next one. 2 more to go, and then I'll do the next, I'll reprime it, or at least paint over the sand portion. Okay, here's where I stand thus far. I sanded it, primed it, threw a little bit of various colored blues on there just for some contrast. And then I went through, as you can see from this one, I then painted all the bases white, just so they would not stand out quite so much. Now I'm deciding if I want to go back and redo some of the, the roots, but I may just leave it like that. Next step is really just to take it inside, put a bunch of trees on there, and see if I want to do any flock rocks, that sort of thing. I'll probably put a little bit of decoration, but not a whole lot, so it's just about done. Alright, there they are. I decided I didn't need to flock them. I kind of like them just how they are. No need to make it more complex. The only thing is I may come in and paint up some of the rocks and stuff. And I may flock one just to see how it looks, because as you can see I'm actually 2 trees shorter than the total number of stands I made. But anyway, very easy to do, magnetized tree stands. I have 7.5, and it's pretty simple. When the soldiers move in, you pull these off so that you can get them in and out. And then most importantly, they store in a shoebox size container. all of this, I have tested it, fits in this container. So that is the end of this one. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see how long this is. Hopefully it didn't last very long, but anyway, this is Wargamer Dad signing out. Until next time, thanks.